The dust storms on Graith 7 were merciless. Red particulate matter swirled through the air, reducing visibility to mere meters, and coating everything with a fine crimson powder that found its way into the smallest crevices. Aaron stared through the reinforced viewport of his bunker, watching as another wave of the storm battered against the structure. The security monitors showed nothing but static and swirling dust. No movement, no life, just as he preferred it. He'd chosen this desolate outpost for precisely that reason. Humanity had pulled back from these frontier worlds after the intergalactic war, leaving behind half-finished colonies and military installations. Perfect for someone who wanted to disappear. Aaron checked his water recycler, functioning at 97% efficiency, before moving to the food synthesizer. The machine hummed, producing a bowl of nutrient-rich soup that tasted vaguely of chicken. Not that Aaron could remember what real chicken tasted like anymore. He'd been on Graith 7 for 3 years, and Earth food was a distant memory. The bunker was quiet, save for the constant low hum of the life support systems and the howling of the wind outside. Aaron had grown used to the sounds, found comfort in their predictability. The silence between the mechanical noises was his only companion, and he'd made peace with that. After what he'd seen during the war, silence was preferable to the alternative. He was halfway through his soup when the perimeter alarm chimed softly. Aaron froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. The security system was alerting him to movement outside the main entrance. He set down his bowl and moved to the console, checking the external cameras. Nothing but swirling red dust. Another false positive, likely triggered by a particularly violent gust. Then he saw it, a small shadow moving through the storm, approaching the bunker. Aaron frowned, reaching for the pulse rifle he kept mounted beside the console. The system must be malfunctioning. Nothing could survive out there, not in a storm this severe. The shadow grew larger, resolving into a humanoid shape. Small. Too small to be an adult. Aaron's frown deepened as he watched the figure stumble through the dust. One hand extended as if feeling its way forward. Then it disappeared from view, presumably reaching the entrance. For a long moment, there was nothing. Aaron kept his eyes fixed on the monitor, fingers tightening around the rifle. Then, a sound cut through the howling wind and mechanical hum. A knock, faint, barely audible but unmistakable. Aaron hesitated. It could be a trap. Raiders sometimes use children as bait, sending them ahead to scout defenses or lure out unsuspecting colonists. Or it could be one of the corrupted AIs that had been set loose during the war, their humanoid shells designed to mimic life perfectly. The knock came again, slightly louder this time. "Security, identify visitor," Aaron commanded. The system chirped in response. "Organic life form detected. Species, humanoid. Age, juvenile. Threat level, minimal. A child, actually outside his door, in the middle of a dust storm." Aaron crossed to the entrance, keeping his rifle ready. He activated the external speaker. "Who are you?" he demanded. "What do you want?" There was no response. Aaron checked the monitor again. The small figure swayed slightly, head bowed against the storm. He couldn't make out any features through the swirling dust, just the slight frame and the tattered clothing that hung from it. He hesitated, then disengaged the first of the 3 locks securing the entrance. "I'm going to open the door," he said. "Don't try anything." The second lock disengaged with a metallic clank. Aaron took a deep breath, finger hovering near the trigger of his rifle, and released the final lock. The door hissed open, releasing a blast of hot, dust-laden air that momentarily clouded his vision. When it cleared, he found himself looking down at a small girl. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old, with skin so pale it was almost translucent, stretched tight over a frame that was little more than bone. Her eyes, unnaturally large in her gaunt face, were a startling amber color that seemed to glow in the dim light. She wore what might once have been a dress, now reduced to tattered rags that hung from her skeletal shoulders. She looked up at him, those amber eyes blinking slowly, and whispered two words, "Food, please." Aaron stood frozen, rifle still half raised. The girl didn't react to the weapon, her attention fixed on his face with an intensity that was unnerving. She swayed slightly, as if staying upright required all her concentration. "Who sent you?" Aaron demanded. "Where are your parents?" The girl didn't respond, just continued to stare at him with those unsettling eyes. A violent gust of wind buffeted the entrance, nearly knocking her off her feet. She staggered, catching herself against the doorframe. Aaron swore under his breath. "Get inside," he said, stepping back to make room. "Quickly." The girl hesitated, glancing over her shoulder into the swirling red darkness before shuffling forward. Aaron sealed the door behind her, engaging all three locks before turning to study his unexpected visitor. She stood motionless in the center of the room, arms wrapped around herself, dripping red dust onto the floor. Up close, he could see the blue veins visible beneath her skin, the hollows in her cheeks, the cracked lips. She was starving. "Sit," Aaron said, gesturing to a chair at the small table where his half-eaten soup still sat. The girl remained motionless, watching him with those eerie amber eyes. Aaron sighed, setting aside his rifle and pulling out the chair. "Sit," he repeated, making a more obvious gesture. "I'll get you something to eat." Slowly, as if she wasn't sure she could trust her legs. The girl moved to the chair and perched on the edge, her feet dangling above the floor. Aaron returned to the food synthesizer, inputting the commands for another bowl of soup, this one with additional proteins and nutrients. "What's your name?" he asked over his shoulder. No response. Aaron glanced back to find the girl staring at his abandoned soup bowl, her hands clenched in her lap, as if to prevent herself from reaching for it. "Go ahead," he said. "You can have that one while you wait." She didn't need to be told twice. With surprising speed, she snatched up the bowl and began to drink directly from it, ignoring the spoon. Aaron watched as she drained it in seconds, not spilling a drop, then set it down with a small, satisfied sigh. The synthesizer chimed, and Aaron retrieved the fresh bowl, placing it in front of the girl along with a new spoon. This time, she used the utensil, though she still ate with desperate speed, as if afraid the food might be taken away at any moment. "Slow down," Aaron advised. "You'll make yourself sick." The girl paused, spoon halfway to her mouth, and looked up at him. For the first time, he saw something other than hunger in her expression, a flicker of gratitude, perhaps, or understanding. Then she resumed eating, slower this time. Aaron watched her for a moment longer before moving to the storage unit. He pulled out a container of sterilized water and poured a cup, setting it beside the girl's bowl. "Drink," he said. "You're probably dehydrated." She finished the soup before reaching for the water, drinking it in small, measured sips. When she had emptied the cup, she set it down carefully and turned those amber eyes back to Aaron. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice slightly stronger now. Aaron nodded, unsure how to respond. He hadn't spoken to another person in months, and he'd never been particularly good with children, even before he'd isolated himself. "What's your name?" he tried again. The girl studied him for a long moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. "Arilla," she finally said. "Arilla," Aaron repeated. "I'm Aaron." He hesitated, then asked, "Where are your parents?" "Arilla." "How did you get here?" Arilla's expression shuddered, her gaze dropping to the empty bowl in front of her. She didn't answer. Aaron sighed. "Look, I can't help you if you don't tell me what's going on. There's nothing out there for miles. How did you end up at my door?" Still nothing. Aaron ran a hand through his short-cropped hair, frustrated. "Are you in some kind of trouble? Is someone after you?" At that, Arila's head snapped up, fear flashing across her gaunt features. She shook her head vehemently. "No one knows," she whispered. "No one followed." Aaron frowned. "Followed from where?" But Arila had retreated back into silence. Her thin shoulders hunched, as if expecting a blow. Aaron recognized the posture. He'd seen it in refugees during the war, in children who had learned that drawing attention to themselves was dangerous. "All right," he said, softening his tone. "You don't have to tell me now, but you can't stay here. You understand? Once the storm passes, I'll have to find somewhere to take you." Arila didn't respond, but her hands tightened in her lap, knuckles turning white. Aaron sighed again and stood, moving to the storage unit. He pulled out a thermal blanket and returned to the girl. "You should get some rest," he said, holding out the blanket. "You can sleep by the heating unit. It's the warmest spot." Arila took the blanket with careful hands, holding it against her chest like something precious. She slid off the chair and padded across the room to the heating unit, which glowed a soft orange in the dim light. Wrapping the blanket around her shoulders, she settled onto the floor, leaning back against the warm metal. Aaron watched her for a moment, then turned away, gathering the empty dishes and placing them in the cleansing unit. By the time he had finished and turned back, Arila was fast asleep, her face relaxed for the first time since she had arrived. With a sigh, Aaron retrieved his rifle and settled into the chair by the console, preparing for a long night of watching. Despite the girl's assurances, he wasn't convinced that she hadn't been followed, and if she had been, he wanted to be ready. The night passed without incident. Aaron dozed intermittently, waking at every shift in the wind or creak of the bunker's settling metal. Each time, his eyes went first to the security monitors, checking for any sign of movement outside, then to the small figure curled by the heating unit. Arila slept deeply, barely moving except to clutch tighter at something she held against her chest. Aaron squinted through the dim light, trying to make out what it was. It looked like a metal pipe, about the length of her forearm, with some kind of engraving along its surface. He hadn't noticed her carrying anything when she arrived, but her clothing was so tattered it could have been hidden anywhere. Curious, Aaron rose and moved quietly closer. The object was indeed a metal pipe, or rather a tube, sealed at both ends and marked with intricate symbols that seemed to shimmer in the low light. Some kind of toy, perhaps, or a keepsake. Whatever it was, Arila held it as if it were her most precious possession. Aaron returned to his post by the console, mind racing. The girl was a mystery. Her appearance here, in the middle of nowhere, during one of the worst dust storms of the season, her obvious malnutrition, the fear that had flashed across her face at the mention of being followed. None of it made sense. He checked the external sensors again. The storm was beginning to abate, the swirling red clouds thinning as dawn approached. Soon, he would be able to take Arila. Where? The nearest settlement was over 100 kilometers away, and he had no way of knowing if anyone there would help her or even take her in. The war had left people suspicious and resources scarce. An orphan child would be seen as a burden at best, a potential threat at worst. Aaron glanced at Arila's sleeping form, feeling a twinge of something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Compassion, perhaps, or protectiveness. It was an unwelcome sensation. He had come to Graith 7 to escape exactly this kind of entanglement, to live out his days in isolation, unburdened by the complexities of human connection. Yet, here he was, contemplating the fate of a child who had literally appeared out of the storm. The first rays of the system's distant sun filtered through the viewport, casting a pale golden light across the bunker's interior. Aaron blinked, realizing he had been lost in thought for longer than he'd intended. He turned to check on Arila. The spot by the heating unit was empty. Aaron stood abruptly, scanning the small confines of the bunker. "Arila," he called, moving quickly to the bathroom door. It was open, the room beyond empty. A cold feeling settled in Aaron's stomach. He checked the security system. The entrance had not been breached. All locks were still engaged. He moved to the small sleeping alcove, the storage area, even looked under the table. Nothing. The girl was gone. Aaron returned to the heating unit, crouching down to examine the space where Arilla had slept. The thermal blanket lay neatly folded, as if she had been taught to leave things as she found them. There was no sign of the metal tube she had been clutching, no indication of how she had left without triggering any of the alarms. It was as if she had never been there at all. For a moment, Aaron wondered if he had imagined the entire encounter, if months of isolation had finally caused his mind to fracture, conjuring a visitor out of desperation for human contact. But no, the second bowl in the cleansing unit was real, as was the folded blanket and the faint impressions in the dust on the floor where small feet had walked. Arilla had been here, and now she was gone. Aaron spent the day in a state of uneasy alertness, checking and rechecking the security systems, scanning the barren landscape around the bunker for any sign of the girl. But there was nothing. No footprints in the dust-covered ground, no movement on the sensors, no indication of which direction she might have gone. By nightfall, Aaron had almost convinced himself to forget the strange encounter. Clearly, Arilla had her own reasons for coming and going as she did. Perhaps she had found what she needed: food, temporary shelter, and moved on. It wasn't his responsibility to track her down or ensure her safety. He had done more than most would, opening his door to a stranger in the middle of a storm. Yet, as he prepared for sleep that night, his eyes kept drifting to the folded blanket by the heating unit, which he had not moved. Something about the girl's desperate hunger, her amber eyes, the way she had clutched that metal tube, it nagged at him, a puzzle his mind wouldn't let go. 3 days passed without incident. The dust storms returned, then receded, following the unpredictable patterns that made Graith 7 such an inhospitable place. Aaron resumed his solitary routine: maintenance checks in the morning, perimeter scans at midday, weapons practice in the afternoon, silent meals in between. The rhythm was familiar, comforting in its predictability. On the third evening, as Aaron was running diagnostics on the life support system, the perimeter alarm chimed again. He looked up sharply, fingers automatically reaching for his rifle before moving to the security console. The external cameras showed 2 figures moving through the fading light, one small, one taller. Aaron's pulse quickened as he recognized Arilla's slight frame. The second figure was clearly an adult, moving with a grace that seemed at odds with the harsh environment. Both were wrapped in tattered cloaks that offered minimal protection from the elements. They approached the entrance with purpose, no hesitation in their steps. When they reached the door, it was the adult who knocked, 3 firm taps that echoed through the bunker. Aaron hesitated, rifle in hand. He had half convinced himself that Arilla had been some kind of hallucination or trap. Now she was back, with company. Every instinct told him to ignore the knock, to pretend the bunker was abandoned. Yet something stronger than instinct pushed him toward the door. "Security, identify visitors," he commanded. The system chirped. 2 organic life forms detected. Species, humanoid. 1 adult, 1 juvenile. Threat level, minimal to moderate. Aaron took a deep breath and approached the entrance. Rifle ready, but not raised. He engaged the external speaker. "Identify yourselves." There was a moment of silence. Then a woman's voice, low and musical despite its evident weariness. "My name is Monica. You helped my daughter 3 nights ago. We seek shelter." Aaron frowned. "Why should I let you in?" Another pause. "Because we have nowhere else to go," the woman replied simply. "And because you have already shown kindness once." Aaron checked the monitor again. The 2 figures stood close together, the woman's arm protectively around Arilla's shoulders. Neither appeared to be armed, though their cloaks could conceal any number of weapons. Making a decision he suspected he would regret. Aaron disengaged the locks. The door hissed open, revealing Arilla and the woman standing exactly as they had appeared on the monitor. The woman, Monica, was tall and slender, with the same gaunt features as her daughter. But where Arilla's skin was pale, Monica's had a distinctly purple undertone, marking her as Valeri, one of the humanoid species that had allied with Earth during the war. Her eyes were the same startling amber as her daughter's, set in a face that might once have been beautiful before hunger and hardship had carved it into sharp angles. She met Aaron's gaze directly, her expression neither pleading nor demanding. There was a dignity in her stance, a quiet strength that immediately commanded respect. "You helped my daughter," she said, her voice as musical in person as it had been over the speaker. "She led me back to you." Aaron glanced at Arilla, who offered a small, tentative smile, the first he had seen from her. The metal tube was visible now, clutched in her hand like a talisman. "Come in," Aaron said finally, stepping back. "Before the dust picks up again." The two entered silently, Monica keeping Arilla close to her side. Aaron sealed the door behind them, engaging all three locks before turning to face his visitors. They stood in the center of the room, exactly where Arilla had stood 3 nights before, shedding fine red dust onto the floor. "Thank you," Monica said formally, inclining her head. "We will not impose on your hospitality for long." Aaron set his rifle aside, studying the pair. Up close, he could see that Monica was in even worse condition than her daughter. Her cheekbones protruded sharply, and the veins in her hands stood out like blue rivers against her purple-tinged skin. Yet, she carried herself with an innate grace that spoke of a different life before whatever circumstances had brought her here. "You're starving," Aaron observed bluntly. Monica's expression didn't change. "We have not eaten well for some time," she acknowledged. "But we do not come as beggars." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "No? What do you come as then?" Monica straightened, her amber eyes holding his. "I propose an exchange. Shelter for myself and my daughter, in return for my services maintaining your dwelling. I am skilled with mechanical systems and domestic tasks. We will earn our keep." Aaron blinked, taken aback by the formal proposal. He had expected pleas for charity, not a business arrangement. "You don't even know if I need help." A slight smile touched Monica's cracked lips. "Everyone needs help, even those who believe they do not." Aaron found himself without a ready response. He turned away, moving to the food synthesizer. "Sit," he said over his shoulder. "Both of you. I'll get you something to eat and then we can discuss arrangements." He input the commands for 2 bowls of the nutrient-rich soup, adding extra proteins and vitamins. As the machine hummed, he glanced back to see Monica and Arilla settling at the table, their movements careful, as if conserving energy. Arilla placed her metal tube on the table beside her, fingers still resting on it protectively. "What is that?" Aaron asked, nodding toward the object as he brought over the soup bowls. Arilla looked up at him, then to her mother. Monica gave a small nod of permission. "It's my song tube," Arilla said softly, pushing it slightly toward Aaron so he could see. "It holds the melody of our house." Aaron frowned, examining the tube without touching it. The engravings, he now saw, were musical notations of some kind, flowing along the metal in intricate patterns. "Every Valari family has one," Monica explained, her voice taking on a subtle rhythm that hadn't been present before. "It contains our ancestral song, passed down through generations. It is all we have left of our home." There was a depth of loss in those final words that Aaron recognized all too well. He nodded once, straightening. "Eat," he said, pushing the bowls toward them. "We'll talk after." They ate with the careful precision of those who had known true hunger, slowly, savoring each spoonful, making the meal last. Aaron watched them, his mind racing. What was he doing, considering letting strangers into his carefully constructed isolation, especially a Valari woman and her half-human child, who clearly carried troubles of their own? Yet, as he observed Monica's quiet dignity and Arila's solemn eyes, he found himself reluctant to turn them away. There was something compelling about their presence, something that stirred memories of a time when he had believed in more than mere survival. When they had finished eating, Monica set down her spoon and met Aaron's gaze directly. "Will you allow us to stay?" she asked, her musical voice devoid of pleading. Aaron hesitated, then nodded once. "For now," he qualified. "We'll see how it goes." Relief flickered across Monica's face, quickly controlled. "Thank you," she said simply. "We will not burden you." Arila smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her gaunt face. For an instant, Aaron caught a glimpse of the child she might have been, in a different world with different circumstances. "I'll show you where you can sleep," he said, rising from the table. "It's not much, but it's better than out there." He led them to the small sleeping alcove, which contained his narrow bunk and a storage cabinet. "You two can have this," he said. "I'll set up something for myself by the console." Monica looked as if she might protest, but then nodded, accepting his offer with the same quiet dignity that seemed to characterize all her actions. "Thank you," she said again. "In the morning, I will begin repaying your kindness." Aaron nodded awkwardly, unused to gratitude. "Get some rest," he said, retreating to the main room. As he set up a makeshift bed near the security console, he could hear soft murmurs from the sleeping alcove, Monica's musical voice, Arila's higher responses. There was comfort in the sound of other human voices after so much silence, a reminder of connections he had long abandoned. Just before he drifted into sleep, Aaron heard a new sound, a gentle, haunting melody that seemed to float through the bunker. Monica was singing, her voice rising and falling in a pattern that resonated with something deep inside him. It was beautiful and sad, a lament for things lost and a celebration of things found. Aaron closed his eyes, letting the song wash over him. For the first time in years, he did not fall asleep with his hand on his rifle. Morning brought a subtle shift in the atmosphere of the bunker. Aaron woke to the unfamiliar scent of freshly synthesized coffee, a luxury he rarely indulged in, preserving his limited supply for special occasions. He opened his eyes to find Monica standing at the food unit, her back to him as she carefully measured the precious grounds. "You didn't need to do that," Aaron said, sitting up. Monica turned, a small smile touching her lips. "It seemed a fitting way to begin our arrangement," she replied. "The smell of coffee is universally welcoming, is it not?" Aaron couldn't argue with that. He accepted the cup she offered, inhaling the rich aroma before taking a careful sip. It was better than when he made it himself, the balance of bitter and smooth just right. "Where's Arila?" he asked, noting the absence of the child. "Still sleeping," Monica said, glancing toward the alcove. "She has not rested properly in a long time. I hope you don't mind." Aaron shook his head. "Let her sleep." He hesitated, then asked the question that had been nagging at him since their arrival. "Where did you come from? There's nothing out there for kilometers." Monica's expression closed slightly, though her posture remained open. "We walked," she said simply. "From where?" Aaron pressed. Monica was silent for a long moment, her amber eyes studying him as if gauging his trustworthiness. Finally, she sighed, a soft sound that carried the weight of exhaustion. "We escaped from a labor camp," she said, her musical voice flat. 14 days ago. We have been moving ever since, staying ahead of pursuit. Aaron frowned. Labor camp? The Alliance outlawed those years ago. A bitter smile touched Monica's lips. Laws mean little in the outer territories. As I'm sure you know, the camp was not official. A private enterprise, one might say. The implication was clear. A slavery operation. Aaron's jaw tightened. Despite the official end of the war, such practices continued in the lawless regions of space, where enforcement was minimal and profit margins high. How did you escape? He asked. Monica's gaze dropped to the cup in her hands. The operation began to collapse. Resources became scarce. We were expendable. When food supplies dwindled to nothing, the guards simply left. They locked the doors and left us to starve. The matter-of-fact way she described their abandonment sent a chill through Aaron. But you got out, Monica nodded. I had been working on the ventilation systems. I knew their weaknesses. A hint of pride entered her voice. We were the only ones who escaped before the life support failed completely. Aaron absorbed this information, trying to imagine the scenario. A camp full of prisoners, abandoned to die when they no longer generated profit. It was all too believable. A horror he had seen versions of during the war. And now, he asked, what's your plan? Monica met his gaze directly. To survive. To ensure my daughter survives. Beyond that, she shrugged, a graceful motion despite her emaciated frame. Plans are luxuries we cannot afford. Aaron nodded, understanding all too well the mindset of taking each day as it came, focusing only on immediate survival. It was how he had lived since coming to Graith 7. Why did you come back here? He asked. After Arila left the first time. She told me of your kindness, Monica replied simply. In our experience, kindness is rare enough to be trusted. Before Aaron could respond, a small voice called from the sleeping alcove. Mother? Monica turned immediately, setting down her cup. I'm here. Arila, come join us. The child appeared, her hair tousled from sleep, the ever-present song tube clutched in one hand. She moved to her mother's side, leaning against her briefly before turning curious eyes to Aaron. Good morning, she said politely. Aaron nodded, somewhat awkwardly. Morning. There's synthesized oatmeal if you're hungry. Arila's eyes lit up at the mention of food, and she moved to the unit with obvious eagerness. Monica watched her fondly, the love in her gaze unmistakable. She is resilient, she said softly. More so than I sometimes? Aaron studied the pair, noting the similarities and differences between them. Arila's features were a blend of her mother's elegant Valeri structure and something more human, her father's contribution, presumably. It was not an uncommon combination. The war had brought species together in various ways, and Valeri-human relationships were among the more accepted. Her father? Aaron asked, keeping his voice low. Monica's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Dead, she said shortly. During the initial raids. Aaron nodded, not pressing further. The story was a familiar one. Civilian casualties had been high in the early days of the conflict, before the Alliance had established proper evacuation protocols. I'm sorry, he said, the words feeling inadequate. Monica acknowledged the sentiment with a slight inclination of her head. Many have lost more, she said. We survive. The day established a pattern that would become familiar in the weeks that followed. Monica set about cleaning the bunker with methodical efficiency, discovering and addressing maintenance issues that Aaron had ignored or patched haphazardly. Arila followed her mother, helping where she could, her small hands surprisingly deft. Aaron maintained his usual routines: perimeter checks, weapons maintenance, communications monitoring, but found himself constantly aware of the other's presence. The bunker, once a tomb-like space of silence and solitude, now echoed with quiet conversations. the occasional laugh from Arila, the soft humming of Monica as she worked. By evening, the living space was noticeably cleaner, the air recycler functioning more efficiently, and the water purification system running at optimal levels. Aaron found himself impressed despite his initial skepticism. "You know your way around environmental systems," he observed, as Monica closed the access panel on the primary air handler. She smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her gaunt features. "I was trained as a ceremonial singer," she explained, wiping her hands on a cloth. "But I had an affinity for mechanics. In the camp, I was assigned to maintenance. It kept us alive, in the end." Aaron nodded, understanding the value of practical skills in survival situations. "What about the singing?" he asked, remembering the haunting melody he had heard the night before. A shadow passed over Monica's face. "That was before, in another life." "You sang last night," Aaron pointed out. "For Arilla," Monica clarified. "The song of our house as it comforts her." Aaron wanted to ask more but sensed her reluctance. Instead, he gestured to the repaired air handler. "This will help," he acknowledged. "The dust gets into everything, even with the filters." "I can improve the filtration system," Monica offered, "with some modifications to the intake design." Aaron found himself nodding. "Tomorrow," he said. "You've done enough for today." That night, after a simple meal of synthesized protein and vegetables, Arila surprised them both by bringing out her song tube. She placed it carefully on the table, looking to her mother with questioning eyes. Monica hesitated, then nodded. "If you wish," she said softly. Arila twisted one end of the tube, revealing a complex mechanism within. She manipulated it with practiced fingers, and a gentle melody began to emanate from the device, a bass tune that underpinned what Aaron recognized as the song Monica had sung the night before. Monica closed her eyes briefly, as if steeling herself, then began to sing. Her voice filled the small space, weaving around the melody from the tube, adding layers of complexity and emotion that the mechanical device could not produce. Aaron sat motionless, transfixed. The song spoke of stars and distant worlds, of connections that transcended physical space, of finding home in unexpected places. Though he didn't understand the Valeri words, the meaning resonated within him, touching something long buried. When the final notes faded, silence fell over the bunker. Not the empty silence of before, but a silence rich with shared experience. "That was beautiful," Aaron said quietly. Monica opened her eyes, and for an instant, Aaron saw vulnerability there. "It is the song of our house," she explained. "Every Valeri family has one, passed through generations. The song tube contains the basic melody, but the variations are taught from mother to daughter." "What does it say?" Aaron asked. Monica exchanged a glance with Arila before answering. "It speaks of resilience," she said, "of finding light in darkness, of continuing when all seems lost." A small smile touched her lips. "Appropriate, perhaps, for our circumstances." Aaron nodded, understanding the sentiment all too well. "Thank you," he said simply, "for sharing it." That night, as Aaron lay on his makeshift bed by the console, listening to the soft breathing of Monica and Arila in the sleeping alcove, he realized that something had shifted within him. The walls he had built around himself, constructed of grief and guilt and the desire for isolation, had developed a small but significant crack. And through that crack, something long forgotten was beginning to seep back in. The days settled into a routine. Monica continued to improve the bunker's systems, applying her mechanical skills with impressive results. The air grew cleaner, the water purer, the life support more efficient. Arila, gaining strength from regular meals, became more animated, exploring the small space with childlike curiosity and asking endless questions about Earth and the other Alliance worlds. Aaron found himself drawn into their quiet existence, almost against his will. He began sharing meals with them, rather than eating alone at the console. He answered Arila's questions, dredging up memories of places he had once visited, people he had once known. He watched Monica work, occasionally offering assistance, learning from her innovative approaches to technical problems. One evening, as they sat at the table after dinner, Arila asked the question Aaron had been half expecting, half dreading. "Why do you live alone, Aaron?" Monica gave her daughter a reproving look. "Arila, that is personal." Aaron shook his head. "It's all right." He considered his answer carefully, unsure how much to reveal. "I was a military engineer during the war," he said finally. "I saw things, did things, that I wanted to forget. After it ended, I couldn't go back to normal life, so I came here, where I wouldn't have to try." Arila's amber eyes studied him with that unnerving intensity. "But you're not alone anymore," she pointed out. A small smile touched Aaron's lips. "No," he agreed. "I suppose I'm not." Later that night, as Arila slept, Monica approached Aaron at the console. She handed him a cup of the precious coffee, prepared exactly as he preferred it. "Thank you," she said quietly. Aaron accepted the cup, raising an eyebrow. "For what?" "For your honesty with Arila," Monica replied, "and for allowing us to disrupt your solitude." Aaron shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude. "You've improved the place," he said. "The exchange is fair." Monica studied him, her amber eyes seeming to see more than he wanted to reveal. "Is it isolation you seek?" she asked softly. "Or absolution?" Aaron stiffened, the question hitting too close to hidden truths. "I don't know what you mean." Monica's expression remained gentle. "I think you do." She hesitated, then added, "In Valari tradition, one's name is a gift of trust. My true name is Monikera Eleth. I give it to you freely." Aaron understood the significance of the gesture. Valari names were guarded carefully, shared only with those considered family or close allies. It was an offering of trust he hadn't expected. "Aaron Caldwell," he responded after a moment. "Former lieutenant, Alliance Engineering Corps." Monica nodded, accepting the exchange. "Sleep well, Aaron Caldwell," she said, her musical voice caressing his full name. She turned to go, then paused. "Whatever you seek to forget, remember that memory is not the enemy. It is how we carry it that matters." Before Aaron could respond, she had disappeared into the sleeping alcove, leaving him with his cooling coffee and thoughts he had long tried to suppress. The perimeter alarm shattered the pre-dawn silence 3 weeks after Monica and Arila's arrival. Aaron was instantly alert, moving to the console before he was fully awake. Monica appeared at his side moments later, her expression tense. "What is it?" she asked, voice low to avoid waking Arila. Aaron studied the readings, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. "Someone's out there, just beyond sensor range, but moving closer." Monica's hand gripped the edge of the console, knuckles whitening. "How many?" "Just one, from what I can tell." Aaron adjusted the settings, trying to get a clearer reading. Small craft, probably single occupant, moving cautiously. Monica's breathing quickened, the only outward sign of her distress. "They found us," she whispered. Aaron glanced at her sharply. "You said you weren't followed." "We weren't," Monica insisted. "But they never stopped looking. The investment was too valuable." The cold anger in her voice confirmed what Aaron had suspected, but never directly addressed. Monica and Arila hadn't been mere laborers in that camp. They had been property. "How long until they reach us?" Monica asked, her voice steadying. Aaron checked the readings again. "At current speed, maybe 2 hours. They're being careful, probably because of the terrain." Monica nodded, her mind visibly racing. "We should leave, now, while we still can." And go where? Aaron countered. There's nothing out there but dust and rock for 100 kilometers. We'd be exposed. Vulnerable. Better than waiting to be taken, Monica said, a flash of fear breaking through her composure. Aaron made a decision then, one that surprised him with its clarity and certainty. No one's taking anyone, he stated flatly. This is my territory, my home, and I don't welcome uninvited visitors. Monica stared at him, searching his face. You would fight for us? I would fight for what's mine, Aaron corrected, the possessive statement emerging before he could analyze it. And you're here, under my protection. That makes you mine. A complex emotion flickered across Monica's features. Gratitude, perhaps, mingled with something deeper. She straightened, her regal bearing reasserting itself. Then we will fight together, she declared. I am not without skills. Aaron nodded, moving to the weapons cabinet. He retrieved his pulse rifle and a smaller sidearm, which he offered to Monica. Can you use this? She took the weapon, checking its charge and settings with practiced ease. Yes, she said simply, not explaining how a ceremonial singer had acquired such knowledge. Aaron didn't ask. Instead, he outlined his plan, a defensive strategy that utilized the bunker's reinforced structure and the surrounding terrain. Monica listened intently, offering suggestions based on her knowledge of typical slaver tactics. They worked quickly, preparing defenses and contingencies. Aaron was impressed by Monica's calm efficiency, her ability to think strategically, even under the pressure of impending confrontation. As they finished their preparations, Arila emerged from the sleeping alcove, immediately sensing the tension. They're coming, she said. It wasn't a question. Monica moved to her daughter, crouching to meet her eyes. Yes, she confirmed, but we are not running this time. We are standing our ground, with Aaron's help. Arila nodded solemnly, showing none of the fear Aaron might have expected from a child. What should I do? Stay in the reinforced storage room, Aaron told her, having already prepared the space as a safe haven. No matter what you hear, don't come out until one of us comes for you. Arila looked between them, her amber eyes too old for her young face. Promise you'll both come back, she demanded. Monica stroked her daughter's hair. We will do everything in our power to return to you, she said, not making a promise she couldn't be certain of keeping. Aaron checked the perimeter sensors again. They're getting closer. It's time. Monica nodded, pressing her forehead briefly against Arila's. Be brave, my star, she whispered. Remember the song of our house. Arila clutched her song tube tightly. I remember, she assured her mother. With a final look at Aaron, she retreated to the storage room, the heavy door sealing behind her. Aaron and Monica took up their positions, he at the main entrance, she covering the emergency exit. The waiting was the hardest part, tension building with each ping of the approaching signal on the sensors. Aaron, Monica said softly, breaking the taut silence. Whatever happens, I want you to know that your kindness gave us more than shelter. It gave us dignity again. Aaron glanced at her, struck by the quiet strength in her posture, the determination in her amber eyes. In that moment, he saw not a refugee or a victim, but a warrior, someone who had endured and survived against impossible odds. We're going to get through this, he said, the words a promise he intended to keep. The sensor pinged again, closer now. The intruder had reached the outer perimeter. Aaron adjusted his grip on the rifle, watching the monitors intently. The figure that appeared on the screen was humanoid, but clearly not human. Too tall, too angular, moving with a predatory grace that sent a chill down Aaron's spine. It wore advanced environmental gear, including a helmet that obscured its features, and carried what appeared to be a high-grade plasma weapon. Professional, Aaron murmured, recognizing the quality of the equipment. Not your average bounty hunter. Monica moved to his side, studying the screen. No, she agreed, her voice tight. That is Vexon, the overseer. The name meant nothing to Aaron, but the fear and hatred in Monica's voice told him everything he needed to know. This was someone who had hurt her. Hurt Arila, someone who viewed them as property to be reclaimed. The overseer approached the bunker with confident steps, pausing at the main entrance. For a moment, it simply stood there, as if sensing the defenses. Then it reached up, removing its helmet to reveal a face that was vaguely reptilian, with slitted pupils and yellow eyes, and scaled skin that gleamed with an oily iridescence. It spoke, its voice amplified to carry through the reinforced door. "I know you are in there, Singer," it called, the words distorted by an accent that stretched the vowels unnaturally. "And the child as well. Your tracks were not as well hidden as you believed." Monica's grip on her weapon tightened, but she remained silent, following their agreed strategy of giving away nothing. "I have come to reclaim what is mine," the overseer continued. "Valuable assets should not be wasted. You were foolish to run, but I am not unreasonable. Return willingly, and the punishment will be minimal." Aaron felt a surge of cold anger at the creature's casual assumption of ownership. He glanced at Monica, whose face had hardened into a mask of determination. "We stick to the plan," he whispered. "Let him think we're negotiating. Get him to step into the kill zone." Monica nodded, moving back to her position. Aaron engaged the external speaker. "This is private property," he announced. "You are trespassing. State your business, and then leave." The overseer's head tilted, yellow eyes narrowing. "Ah, the complication," it said, its tone almost amused. "The human who took in my runaways. How charitable." "They're not yours," Aaron replied evenly. "They're under my protection now." A hissing laugh escaped the overseer. "Protection? You have no idea what you've welcomed into your home. Human. The Singer is not what she appears. Dangerous. Unpredictable. And the child. A genetic experiment. Nothing more. Both are registered assets of the consortium." "The consortium was disbanded after the war," Aaron countered. "And slavery is illegal in Alliance territory." "We are not in Alliance territory," the overseer pointed out. "Out here, possession is the only law that matters. And they are mine. I possess the codes, the control sequences." Aaron frowned, glancing at Monica, who had gone very still. "What codes?" The overseer's mouth stretched in what might have been a smile. "Ask the Singer about her implant. Ask why she really came to you, human. Ask what happens when I activate the override." Before Aaron could respond, the overseer raised a small device and pressed a sequence of buttons. Instantly, Monica crumpled to the floor, a cry of pain escaping her as her body convulsed. Aaron abandoned the console, rushing to her side. "Monica, what's happening?" Through gritted teeth, she managed to whisper. "Neural implant. Control mechanism. Can't fight it for long." The overseer's voice came through the speaker again, smug with triumph. "You see, they were never free, merely temporarily misplaced. Now, open the door, human, or I will increase the intensity until her brain cooks inside her skull." Aaron looked down at Monica, whose amber eyes were wide with pain and fear. Not for herself, he realized, but for Arila. "Don't," she gasped. "He'll take her. Use her. Please." Making a swift decision, Aaron returned to the console and activated a rarely used protocol. The bunker's lights flickered, then dimmed as power was diverted to the electromagnetic pulse generator he had installed during the war as a defense against drones. "System overload in 10 seconds, the computer announced. 9, 8. Aaron returned to Monica, gathering her into his arms. "Cover your ears," he instructed, doing the same for her when she proved unable to move. "This will hurt, but it should disrupt the implant. The countdown reached 0, and a wave of energy pulsed outward from the bunker. Every electronic system momentarily failed, plunging them into darkness before the emergency lights activated. Monica's body went rigid, then limp, a small trickle of blood escaping her nose. "Monica?" Aaron shook her gently. "Monica, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, disoriented but aware. "The implant," she murmured. "It's silent. I can't feel it anymore." Aaron helped her sit up, relieved. "The EMP should have fried it, and any other electronics within 50 meters, including our friend's control device." As if on cue, a roar of rage came from outside, followed by the sound of weapons fire impacting the reinforced door. The overseer, deprived of its technological advantage, had resorted to brute force. "Can you stand?" Aaron asked, helping Monica to her feet. She nodded, though she swayed slightly. "I'm all right," she insisted, retrieving her dropped weapon. "The plan?" Aaron checked the external camera, which had reactivated on the backup system. The overseer was directly in front of the door, firing repeatedly at the reinforced metal. "Still viable," he confirmed. "Get ready." They resumed their positions, Aaron at the main controls, Monica covering the entrance, when the overseer paused in its assault, likely to allow its weapon to cool. Aaron activated the door release. The heavy metal barrier slid open just enough to create a shooting lane. The overseer, surprised by the sudden movement, hesitated for a crucial second. All the time, Aaron needed to fire a precise burst from his pulse rifle. The shots caught the creature in the shoulder and chest, spinning it backward. It recovered with unnatural speed, returning fire as it dove for cover behind a rock formation. Plasma bolts scorched the wall beside Aaron's head as he ducked behind the console. "It's faster than I expected," he called to Monica. "We need to end this quickly." Monica nodded, her face set in grim lines. "The vulnerable point is the base of the skull," she said. "If you can draw its fire, I can circle around through the emergency exit." Aaron considered the risk, then nodded. "Be careful," he said, their eyes meeting briefly before she slipped toward the secondary door. Taking a deep breath, Aaron leaned out from behind the console, firing a series of rapid shots that forced the overseer to keep its head down. He maintained the suppressive fire, waiting for Monica to get into position. Time seemed to stretch, each exchange of fire marking seconds that felt like minutes. Aaron was acutely aware of his dwindling ammunition, of the increasing accuracy of the overseer's return fire. A plasma bolt grazed his arm, searing through the fabric of his sleeve and scorching the skin beneath. Then, just as he was preparing to fall back to a secondary position, he saw Monica emerge from behind the rock formation. She moved with silent grace, the sidearm extended before her, approaching the overseer from behind. The creature sensed her too late. It began to turn, but Monica was already firing, 3 precise shots that struck exactly where she had indicated. The overseer crumpled, its weapon discharging harmlessly into the dust as it fell. For a moment, neither Aaron nor Monica moved, watching for any sign of life. When the creature remained motionless, Aaron cautiously approached, rifle ready. Monica joined him, her face expressionless as she looked down at the being that had caused her so much suffering. "Is it dead?" she asked, her voice steady. Aaron checked for vital signs, finding none. "Yes," he confirmed. "It's over." Monica closed her eyes briefly, a shudder passing through her slender frame. When she opened them again, there was a new clarity there, a weight lifted. "We should retrieve Arilla," she said. They returned to the bunker, sealing the entrance behind them. Aaron released the lock on the storage room, and Arilla emerged, her song tube clutched to her chest. She took in their disheveled appearance, the scorch mark on Aaron's arm, the blood on her mother's face. "Is it gone?" she asked, her voice small but steady. Monica knelt, opening her arms, and Arila rushed into them. "Yes, my star," she assured her daughter. "It's gone, and it can never control us again." Over Arila's head, Monica's eyes met Aaron's, conveying a depth of gratitude that words could not express. He nodded once, acknowledging the unspoken sentiment, then moved to the medical cabinet to tend to his wounded arm. Later, after the overseer's body had been disposed of and its ship dismantled for usable parts, the three of them sat at the table, sharing a meal that tasted sweeter than any before. The danger had passed, the threat neutralized, but Aaron sensed there were still questions that needed answers. "The implant," he said finally, breaking the comfortable silence. "When did they put it in you?" Monica's hand went unconsciously to the base of her skull. "When I was first captured," she replied. "It was, a standard procedure for valuable assets, a way to ensure compliance, prevent escape." "And Arila?" Aaron asked, glancing at the child who was contentedly finishing her meal. "They never had the chance," Monica said, relief evident in her voice. "The facility was already failing when they brought us in. The procedure requires specialized equipment that they no longer had access to." Aaron nodded, absorbing this information. "The overseer called her a genetic experiment. What did it mean?" Monica hesitated, looking at her daughter with a mixture of love and concern. "Arila, perhaps you should prepare for sleep," she suggested gently. The child looked between them, understanding more than her age would suggest. "It's all right, Mother," she said. "I know what I am." Monica sighed, then nodded. "Arila's father was a geneticist," she explained to Aaron. "He was working on adaptations that would allow humans to survive in environments they were not naturally suited for. When the consortium raided his laboratory, they found his research and me. I was a singer at their facility, entertaining executives." She paused, her eyes distant with memory. "They saw an opportunity. My species has natural adaptations to harsh environments, respiratory filters, enhanced temperature regulation, efficient water usage. Valerie are also known for longevity and resilience. They encouraged a relationship between us, hoping to combine his research with my natural attributes." Aaron's jaw tightened as he understood the implication. "They bred you for experiments." Monica nodded, her expression carefully controlled. "Arila was the result. She carries modifications from her father's research, along with my natural Valeri traits. She is unique, able to survive conditions that would kill either of her parent species, a valuable asset in the consortium's eyes." Arila looked up from her plate, her amber eyes meeting Aaron's directly. "I can breathe the dust," she said, matter-of-factly. "And I don't need much water. That's how we survived when we escaped. Mother had the implant, but I had the adaptations." Aaron stared at the child, seeing her in a new light, not as a victim, but as a survivor who had used her engineered differences to ensure both her and her mother's escape. A surge of admiration filled him. "You're remarkable," he told her sincerely. "Both of you." Arila smiled, the expression transforming her solemn face into that of a normal child, if only for a moment. "Can I play my song tube before bed?" she asked her mother. Monica nodded, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. "Of course, my star." As Arila retrieved her precious tube, Aaron moved to Monica's side. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. Monica met his gaze steadily. "Would you have believed me? Would you have trusted us, knowing what we were, what we are?" Aaron considered the question honestly. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I trust you now." Something softened in Monica's amber eyes. "That is all that matters," she said simply. Arila returned with her song tube, activating the mechanism with practiced fingers. The familiar melody filled the bunker, wrapping around them like a physical presence. But this time, Instead of singing alone, Monica motioned for Aaron to join them. "The song of our house," she explained, "is meant to be shared with family." The word hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning. Aaron hesitated, then moved to sit beside them, completing their small circle. Monica began to sing, her voice rising and falling in perfect harmony with the mechanical notes from the tube. After a moment, Arilla joined in, her higher voice weaving through her mother's with practiced ease. Aaron listened, feeling something shift within him, a final melting of the ice that had encased his heart for so long. These two remarkable beings, who had endured so much, had found their way to him across a hostile wilderness. And in doing so, they had given him something he had thought lost forever, a purpose beyond mere survival. When the song ended, Arilla yawned, the excitement and tension of the day finally catching up with her. Monica led her to the sleeping alcove, tucking her in with gentle hands before returning to Aaron, who stood at the viewport, watching the stars emerge as the dust settled. "What happens now?" he asked without turning. Monica moved to stand beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her presence. "That depends," she replied, "on what you want." Aaron turned to face her, struck again by the quiet dignity that defined her, even after all she had endured. "I want you to stay," he said simply. "Both of you. Not as guests or temporary arrangements, as family." The word still felt strange on his tongue, but right in a way he hadn't expected. Monica's eyes widened slightly, then softened with an emotion Aaron was only beginning to recognize. "Are you certain?" she asked. "We bring complications. Dangers, perhaps?" "Life is complicated," Aaron replied, "and dangerous. But it's better with others to share it." He hesitated, then added, "Better with you." Monica studied him for a long moment, her amber eyes searching his face. Whatever she saw, there seemed to satisfy her, for she nodded slowly. "Then we will stay," she said, "and make this place truly a home." On impulse, Aaron reached out, taking her hand in his. Her fingers were cool against his skin, but they curled around his with surprising strength. They stood together in silence, watching as the last light faded from the horizon, leaving only stars in a clearing sky. The following weeks brought changes to the bunker, small adjustments that transformed it from a defensive position to a genuine dwelling. Aaron dismantled some of the more aggressive security measures, replacing them with practical safeguards. Monica continued to improve the environmental systems, creating spaces where plants could grow in the filtered light from expanded viewports. Arilla flourished under the stability of their new arrangement, her frame filling out, her natural curiosity encouraged rather than suppressed. She took particular interest in Aaron's engineering work, watching intently as he repaired equipment or modified systems, asking questions that revealed a keen intelligence. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Arilla surprised Aaron by placing her song tube in his hands. "Would you like to learn?" she asked solemnly. Aaron glanced at Monica, who nodded her permission, her eyes warm. Carefully, Aaron accepted the tube, conscious of its significance. "I'd be honored," he replied. Arilla beamed, showing him how to activate the mechanism, explaining the meaning behind the different tones. "This part," she said, pointing to a particular sequence of symbols, "is about finding shelter in the storm, and this," her finger moved to another section, "is about family bonds that transcend blood." Aaron listened intently, absorbing not just the technical aspects but the cultural significance. When Arilla finally yawned, Monica sent her to bed, leaving Aaron holding the song tube, its weight somehow both lighter and more substantial than he had expected. "She trusts you completely," Monica observed, settling beside him on the small couch they had constructed from repurposed materials. Aaron carefully set the tube aside. "I hope I deserve it," he said honestly. Monica's hand found his, a touch that had become familiar in recent weeks. You have given her something precious, security, yes, but also acceptance. She has never known what it is to be valued for herself, not for what she was designed to be. Aaron covered her hand with his free one, creating a warm cocoon around her slender fingers. And you? He asked quietly. What have I given you? Monica's amber eyes met his, direct and unguarded. A chance to be more than a survivor, she said. To remember what it is to live, not merely exist. The distinction echoed Aaron's own journey, from the hollow existence he had maintained before their arrival to the increasingly full life he now found himself living. The change had been gradual but profound, like ice thawing after a long winter. I was dead before you came, he admitted, going through the motions, but not really living. Monica's expression softened. And now? In answer, Aaron leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers in the Valari gesture she had shown him, an expression of trust and affection deeper than words. He felt her breath catch, then steady, her hand tightening around his. Now I remember what it means to have a purpose, he said. A reason to look forward to tomorrow. Monica closed her eyes, a smile touching her lips. For us as well, she whispered. You saved us. Aaron Caldwell. Aaron shook his head slightly, careful not to break their contact. No, he corrected gently. I opened a door. You did the rest. A soft sound that might have been a laugh escaped Monica. Perhaps we saved each other, she suggested. They remained that way for a long moment, foreheads touching, hands entwined, breathing the same air. When Aaron finally pulled back, it was only far enough to look into her eyes, to see the same tentative hope he felt reflected there. Later that night, as they prepared for sleep, Monica and Arilla in the now improved sleeping alcove. Aaron on his bed near the console. Arilla's voice drifted through the dimly lit bunker. Aaron? She called softly. He turned toward her voice. Yes? You didn't save us, she said, her tone matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. We found you. The simple statement hung in the air, a truth that reframed everything that had happened since that first knock on his door. Aaron considered it, feeling the rightness of it settle into place like the final piece of a puzzle. Yes, he agreed, a smile touching his lips. You did. In the darkness, he heard Monica's soft laugh, a sound of genuine joy that had become increasingly common. It was, he reflected, the most beautiful sound in their small, shared world. Outside, the dust storms of Graith 7 continued their relentless cycle, scouring the landscape and testing the limits of all who dared to make this harsh planet their home. But within the walls of what had once been merely a bunker, and was now something much more, 3 unlikely companions had created something rare and precious, a family forged not from blood or obligation, but from choice and trust and the simple human need for connection. And in that creation, they had each found salvation,